Hi everyone and welcome to the second video in the series on how to program the TI-Nspire calculator. Today we'll be discussing the creation and manipulation of variables. So to start, we'll create a new document and add a calculator page. We'll be using the program editor later in this video. In the TI-Nspire and in any type of software, variables are used to store data. Here we can define a variable using a define keyword. We'll call it a and then we'll set it equal to a number like 1.2. Typing this variable will make it bold and we will just get back the value that we set it equal to. So we can define another variable. Let's define a variable called b and set it equal to a vector. I'll use the button on the right of the calculator and make it just a 2 by 1 vector. And we'll just give it numbers 1 and 2. So variables do not have to just store numbers. They can be matrices, lists, vectors, strings, anything. So we can multiply variable a by variable b and we will get the appropriate result. Even more, we can define a variable c and set that equal to the product of a and b, and we should get the same result. So hopefully you can see how powerful this technique is when we start programming. A function that accepts an input and returns an output is also a type of variable. We can define a function using the same define keyword. Let's say we call it f, and it'll be in terms of x and y. So we'll be putting in x and y to the function, and just let's make it x times y. So basically the two numbers we give it, it's going to return the product of them. So if I just type in f of x of y, it's going to give us x times y. But if I replace those with integers, like 3 and 4, I will get 12 because that's the product of 3 and 4. Just a quick note before we continue, sometimes it's hard to use the calculator keyboard to type in the define keyword. So there's a shortcut. You can go to Menu, Actions, and Define, or Menu 1 to quickly type in that keyword. Now we will actually begin programming. First, I'm just going to clear the screen by going to Menu, Actions, and then Clear History, just to make everything easier. This time we'll be opening a programming tab on the right so that we have a split screen. So we'll go to Menu, Functions and Programs, Program Editor, and New. We'll just call this program P because it doesn't really matter for our purposes right now, and click OK without changing any of the other settings. There are two types of variables, local and global. We'll start with local variables. We define them using the local keyword. So we can say local, or we can just find it in the menu, define variables and local. And once we do that, we just can call it anything like a. Then on the next line, we can give that variable a value. There are two ways of doing this. Either you can set a number and then use the store keyword by pressing Ctrl var and then pressing a, so 9 is being saved into a. Or there's a method that I think is more intuitive, which I also prefer, and that method is you just type in a and then you set it equal to 9, but you have to use a special type of equal sign. It's kind of like a colon and an equals by pressing Control and then on that button on the right that I have shown. So then you can set it equal to 5 and that just sets a equal to 5. So we'll just display the variable of a to see if we properly saved it. Now we will check syntax and store, or we could press Ctrl B, and hopefully it will be stored successfully. Now we can call the program P with parentheses, and we get 5 back, which means that we successfully stored 5 in the variable called A. Local variables are made in the program and destroyed right after it, so variable A does not exist anymore. But global variables exist everywhere. So we can define a new variable, which will be global, like V, and set it equal to 175. So this is now a global variable. We can access it in the program. We can access it anywhere in this document. So instead of displaying A, we'll display V instead. And again, I will save our program and we will call the program P and we get 175. So although we did not define that variable in the program, it knew what it was because it is global. So it's accessible anywhere in this document. Now we will make our first useful program that calculates the hypotenuse of a right triangle given the legs. So between the parentheses in the P, we'll type in A comma B, which will be the length of the legs of a right triangle. And we will have to supply those to the program for it to give us the calculation. We will define a local variable called hypotenuse, but that's too long to spell, especially on a weird calculator keyboard, so we'll just call it HYP. So then we will give it a value, which, using the Pythagorean theorem, is the square root of a squared plus b squared. So that is our answer. That's the answer to our program. It's the hypotenuse of our triangle. But now we have to find a way to output it. So we will display some text, hypotenuse with a colon, and then we'll put comma, and then we'll put the name of our variable that has the value we're looking for, right? Hip. So then the calculator will print this out right after the hypotenuse text and after the colon. So now we will save our program again using Control B or using the menu, and we will run it again. If we run it without any arguments, we get too few arguments because the program needs the length of both of the legs of the triangle. So we'll give it 2 legs, 3 and 4, like a 3 for 5 triangle. And we get the expected answer, which is 5, because 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 25, and the square root of that is 5. Thank you for watching today's video. In the next video, we will discuss the difference between programs and functions. I hope to see you there.